Greetings traders and welcome to Exness Talks, your go-to source for the latest analysis and ideas from markets, plus tips for trading and more. Greetings traders and welcome to another educational and analytical podcast from Exness Talks. Joining us today to provide insights, we have Stanislav Bernachow. Thank you very much, Stan, for joining us.
Hello, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
The hot topic this week, once again, among traders at least, is inflation. And this is inflation week with the CPI release due from the USA. Can you briefly give us the lowdown on this and what kind of effects the release might possibly have on markets, commodity markets especially?
Yes, the second week of each month is a month where CPI is published, the Consumer Inflation Indicator, CPI, and it's published on Thursday. Well, that's considered as the most important indicator, which is published by the Department of Labor of the United States, particularly. And as all eyes of traders and investors are on inflation right now, because it's the main, I would say, driving factor for the markets, so people will monitor actively these numbers. So the anticipated number is the increment for 0.4% or 0.4 point in comparison to the previous release. So it's got to be something like 1.2, right? But in case this number is greater than anticipated, and it might be, by the way, considering the growth of commodities, we see crude oil, we see everything is growing, right? So it might actually give even more support for gold, for crude oil, for other commodities. So let's see how it goes. But I don't think personally that it might be smaller than anticipated, but who knows? So we don't forecast. So let's see what number we will get on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, of course. Let's see what happens. And over the last weekend, we had a meeting of some leaders of the G7, the group of 7 countries, discussing tax policy, among other things. Can we briefly talk about what kind of effects this might have on markets in the long term and in the short term?
Sure. So first of all, that's a fundamentally long-term event, I would say. So that might not affect markets immediately, but it will be the good, I think, factor for the U.S. economy and for American dollar particularly. So imagine that, for example, big tech companies start paying taxes in the U.S. They were doing that in Ireland, for example, previously. And imagine they are paying it in the U.S. Of course, that would be a good addition to the budget. And that's a bad news for some tax havens, but that's a good news for the U.S. and that might affect positively the U.S. economy. So, and actually, it might even boost expectations of interest rate hike. So that's a controversial type of influence. So let's see how it goes. In case the economy is doing well, that might add to the optimism. So that might add to the growth of the stock market. So let's see how it goes. But actually, that's a long-term, I think, optimistic news for the US, but not for the tax haven countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And finally, considering last week's non-farm payrolls came in roughly about 550,000. So, it's better than certainly last month's, but it's not an amazingly strong release. What kind of effects do you think over the course of this week that might be having on markets? Do you think it's going to influence the Fed or is it going to influence commodities? What's your view on this?
Yes, strong or not so, but we've seen that we have positive dynamics both in the payrolls and both in unemployment. So unemployment goes down, so it confirms downtrend, and employment goes up, so it confirms the uptrend. So markets like this, so we still observe the dynamics of stock indices. So Nasdaq, for example, had very strong rebound of the support on this data. So I think that 300 points, that's more than daily volatility. And S&P is also had shown the significant strength, as well as Russell 2000. So markets like this, but don't fall short of this situation, because I would say that the reaction of the market on the news it's just not enough to get the good trading idea. Because the market is optimistic, it touches the highs. but it needs some more information. It needs some more fuel to continue going forward. And the next one will be CPI this week. So let's see how it goes. At least from a trader standpoint, I think that today or tomorrow, for example, and this week, it might be questionable to jump on the highs because still traders will await for CPI, for other inflation data, and so the trade location might be questionable, at least for now. But let's see how it goes. It's still markets confirm optimistic trend. I mean bullish trend. That's a good driving factor. So in case you have a good entry point, in case you have a support or anything, so you can still continue going up with indices.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Stan, for analyzing these events.
Thank you, Michael. Good luck and trade well.
Yes, indeed. And we wish you responsible trading and successful trading to all of you watching and listening. Please join us again in the near future. Farewell.